Hey, it's Conrad the Mortgage Guy, and we are live at 83weeks.com. And of course, we couldn't do it without the hostess with the mostest. Actually, I don't think that works. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hall of Famer, Eric Bischoff. Eric, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. Doing great. It's Friday morning here. We're packing up. It's our wedding anniversary is coming up. It'll be 41 years this year. Typically, Mrs. B and I jump on the Harley, or maybe we just throw the dog in a truck and go on up to Bozeman, Montana, and hang out for a couple of days. But the events being what they are, we're going to be in Tampa on Tuesday for the service. So we thought we'd take a little early anniversary expedition up to Red Lodge, Montana, stay at a lodge along the river, and just chill out for a night. And then we're on our way to Tampa.
What day is your anniversary? I don't know that. I should know that.
It's August 5th.
You know what's crazy? I don't know that we've ever talked about this. That was Megan and I's first date.
Really?
So I'm taking a little bit of heat because I too am going to miss my anniversary. I'll be in Tampa on Tuesday. So, yeah, what a small world. I guess I should start at the top of the show. Today, August 1st, happy Hulk Hogan in Florida Day, Eric. What a cool announcement that was yesterday, right?
I know. I heard actually when I was coming home Tuesday night or whatever, I listened because it's hard to get a radio station out here where I live. Just some black holes where you can't get anything, cell service or anything. So I listened on my wireless, and I listened to the local WFLA in Tampa is kind of my streaming news partner when I'm driving. And I heard the announcement. Well, that is damn cool. And I think there's going to be a little more to it. I don't want to get ahead of it, but yeah, I think it's really awesome. Really awesome. And Nick, Hulk's son, Nick, was actually, he called me right after I had heard. And he explained it to me, and he was very, very excited and proud because he knew his dad would be proud.
Listen, I know in 2025, it's almost impossible to talk about anything without politics coming up. We are not going to do that here on the program.
So yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe.
Okay. Well, I would rather not have a political discussion and just talk about fun wrestling stuff. But I mean, listen, there's been, Ric Flair Day in Minnesota before. I think it's cool that today, I'm in Florida today, is officially Hulk Hogan Day. That's kind of fun. Our topic today is going to be memorializing and remember the immortal Hulk Hogan, the Hulkster himself. And when we did this last Saturday, there was just such an outpouring and such a response to that episode and that live show that we did, trying to pay tribute to your friend, the real life Terry Bollea, that we couldn't possibly get to all the questions. So I thought, you know what? Let's do a little more double dose of Hulkster today. We'll be back with our regularly scheduled programming, we hope, next week. But I mean, realistically, Eric, we could probably do Hulk Hogan episodes from now until the end of time. I mean, without Hulk Hogan, the 83 weeks doesn't happen. Without Hulk Hogan, you and I probably aren't doing a podcast together, right?
Well, I mean, if you go down that rabbit hole, and it's a fun rabbit hole to go down, I always talk about how one thing can lead to something else that you never anticipated or expected that has a amazing impact on your life. And certainly that sums up in a nutshell my overall professional arc with Hulk Hogan. But I think it does for a lot of people. And you can go down that rabbit hole to the point where if you really are as objective as we possibly can be, because we are humans and we're going to have our biases, whether we are aware of them sometimes or not. Sometimes they're subconscious. They shape the way you think. But in my mind, I'm really comfortable saying if it weren't for Hulk Hogan, there would be no WWE today. And in the same breath, say that without Vince McMahon and WWE, there would have never been a Hulk Hogan. And I'm not saying that to be equitable or fair. I'm saying it because I'm absolutely convinced it's true. That was a powerful duo that in that moment, at that time, they had maybe not the exact same vision, but their vision of what wrestling could be was so similar. And the stars aligned. But I don't think the stars would have ever aligned if there would have only been one or the other, that being Vince McMahon or Hulk Hogan. So you can have so much fun with that and think about, well, what if that would have never happened? What would John Cena be? Would he be a dentist?
Right.
Would he be an astronaut? What would he have grown up to be? And you can just go down the line and imagine the what ifs that all begin with this cat named Hulk Hogan.
Eric, the internet wrestling community and really just mainstream media, certainly YouTube and everywhere else you go, there's just Hulk Hogan content more than we can possibly consume or shake a stick at. I mean, WWE Vault on YouTube last night uploaded something that was just fantastic, 30 some odd minutes of behind the scenes footage. I saw another angle from the heel turn that I'd never seen before from a different camera, just that raw footage, just really cool moments. And it's interesting because I'm hearing from people who are not traditionally wrestling fans who are asking about it, wanting to talk about it. Like I'm down here at the beach for my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, mom. And every time, there's just a lull in the conversation or we're not watching a movie or something, she'll ask a Hulk Hogan question. And we wound up getting down the rabbit hole last night. I guess I wanted to ask, I'm sure you've been inundated with lots of tributes from different luminaries in the space. Do you want to shout out any that you felt like were particularly touching or that really struck a chord with you?
No, I can't think of one. I was so overwhelmed, honestly, that sometimes this is just an interesting self-study in human behavior, I guess. But I noticed over the weekend that even as recently as yesterday, I can be in the middle of a conversation and it's just one word or a phrase or a kind of, off the cuff comment that'll hit me, while getting a little deeper in a conversation about it, like we're doing right now. I don't have any issue with that. I'm good. But occasionally it's this, and you can't see it coming. There's no pattern, but there are little words or phrases or comments that take me back to a memory, right? That must stand out in my subconscious because, again, I'm not thinking about it. I'm not dwelling on it, but the most obscure kind of comment can, trigger a flashback in my head. It brings back a picture that's positive, and fun, a good memory. And then here it comes, right? So sometimes, like last week in particular, is when I really noticed that it wasn't the real profound, heartfelt, and honest, sincere comments that triggered me. Sometimes they were just the most seemingly, not important, but they trigger a memory. So I don't have any that stand out. I have spent a lot of time on that roller coaster last weekend, but I don't have anyone that stands out.
I know that you mentioned it last week, so I'm going to follow up here, but I want to be clear. I'm not trying to pry. I don't need any particulars or details. I'm just making conversation. You mentioned last week that you knew you were going to have a conversation with Kevin Nash. And when you're normally in your recording studio, a famous portrait from paintyourlife.com hangs behind you of that iconic moment when Hulk Hogan told the fans to stick it, brother. And as you take a look at that photo, Scott Hall's no longer here. Mean Gene Okerlund's no longer here. Hulk Hogan's no longer here. And Kevin Nash is the last man standing. And boy, he's been put through the ringer with the loss of his best friend, Scott Hall, and the loss of his son. And now the Hulkster. I mean, he's got to be feeling a certain type of way. Have you had a chance to catch up with Kevin Nash yet?
Yes, I did. Actually, Monday when I was in Detroit for the Raw tribute, we finally caught up. It was such a great conversation for a lot of reasons. The obvious one, Kevin really loved Hulk, and Hulk felt the same about Kevin. There was a bond there. They weren't like hanging out every weekend kind of buddies and all that, but there was a very, very unique relationship there, a special relationship. And we talked a lot about that, and his impact overall and certain memories and moments. But the best part of that conversation was it caught me by surprise, really, but it put just the biggest smile on my face. He said, it was really, he mentioned the podcast, our podcast. And he goes, really cool that you talked about Terry's faith. And then proceeded to tell me that he too, Kevin, has, I want to say a period of time, but it's some time now, has really began kind of reconnecting with his. And I was so glad to hear that because of what Kevin's gone through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to contemplate, but I don't know what could be worse. I'm sure there are, but losing your child,
Yeah.
It's got to be at the top of the list for anybody. And then Scott Hall, and get the order out of obviously, but Scott Hall, and now Hulk. It's a lot of loss.
Yeah.
For somebody who, in my opinion, is far more a sensitive person than you would ever imagine.
Yeah.
Or that he would ever let you imagine. Kevin is Kevin. That's all real. But the reason Kevin Nash is who he is today is because he's a very sensitive guy. And sensitive people learn how to defend that. And they learn how to protect it. And they learn how not to become sensitive or to let people see that you are. And you get confident, sometimes scary, especially when there's 6'7" people, but he's a very sensitive human being. And I think the fact that, he's finding his way back to his faith and the comfort that he finds there and the partnership, I'm happy for him. And it's interesting that, Hulk Hogan is the one that brought that conversation together, isn't it?
Super cool. Thank you for sharing that. I think we're all thinking about Kevin. We all know as wrestling fans, man, he's just been put through the paces. Let's talk about something that I know is important to you. I was happy to see that while you may not have been able to make it to the SmackDown tribute, you were there for the Raw tribute on Monday night. Of course, if you tuned into our live this past Saturday, Eric had just gotten home, unpacked a bag, and then repacked it to turn around and fly back to Detroit and do this thing. But it was a who's who, including, I was really happy to see it, Nick Hogan front and center. I got to ask, how cool was that to see Nick Hogan sort of taking the stage for the Balea family? I thought that was fantastic.
I am so proud of Nick. I've known Nick all his life. I mean, literally, I've known Nick all his life. And I've always enjoyed being around Nick and spent a lot of time around him. Probably, well, it doesn't matter. I spent a lot of time with him and Hulk together. And I've always had respect for Nick. I mean, he's always been a pretty smart kid. I never really got to know him real well because he's my son's age. He's younger than my son.
Right.
So it's not like we hung out and did stuff together, but never really got to dig down deep, and have deeper conversations with Nick. And I certainly did over the last week or more, actually the last several weeks leading up to it. And I am really impressed with how level-headed and intuitive Nick is. He's a strong young man. Really proud of him. Really proud of him. He's stepping up and he's handling it. He's handling it like a man. I'm glad for him.
I know that this is, probably not the time or place to ask, but do you assume that he's going to step into some of the Hulkster's business stuff? Because, I mean, the Hulk IP, man, that stuff will live forever. And somebody is going to have to manage all of that. Do we assume that Nick will be a big part of that? I mean, that's logical to me.
I would assume so. I haven't, gotten into that type of conversation.
Sure.
It's not on the list of things to do quite yet. But I would assume because Nick is already involved. It's not like Nick's been involved on the beer side of the Real American Beer, right? Nick isn't necessarily directly involved with Real American Freestyle unless it pertains to assets or trademarks or copyrights, that type of thing. And then he's part of the discussion for sure. So he's been on tour with us for Real American Freestyle. He's part of it, just doesn't have an operational definition yet. But I would assume that would be the case.
I, for one, am looking forward to that and hope it happens. I've always felt like he should have, been a bigger part of some of these wrestling gatherings and get-togethers. Like, I see so many other extended family members of giant wrestling personalities at these, and I don't know. I think it's kind of his birthright to be able to see how much love people had for his father. We're celebrating Hulk Hogan. We got a lot of great questions left over from last Saturday, but we are still taking your questions live now. So if you've got those, we are live. It is Hulk Hogan Day here in Florida on August 1st. But right now, we're going to take a quick break, talk about some Factor. We'll be right back. All right, boys, summer is here. SummerSlam is here. And that means more sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer, spending hours cooking inside. That's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. And with 45 different weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. Choose from options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and so many more. Factor powers your day, sun up to sundown. They've got you hooked up with nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and even guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor truly has your entire day covered. Enjoy more this summer. Get Factor in all the flavor and none of the fuss. I'm a big believer in this product. Eric and I have endorsed a few different services like this, and I got to tell you, Factor is the only one I've reordered. I mean it. I am all over Factor. This is a staple in my household, whether they're advertising or not. I know Eric believes in it. I know you will too. Go try it right now. Get started at factormeals.com/83weeks50 off. Use the code 83weeks50 off. You'll get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code 83weeks50 off at factormeals.com/83weeks50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. That's factormeals.com/83weeks50 off. I'm telling you, you'll taste the difference. You'll love it. You'll be a Factor fan for life. Factormeals.com/83weeks50 off. Eric is with us here live, and he says, I'm curious as to how different the Attitude Era would have been or happened if Hogan didn't form the NWO at the Bash at the Beach. The NWO changed pro wrestling, and we got the Monday Night Wars. I think that's all facts, Eric. I don't know that we have, that hardened edge of the Stone Cold Steve Austin character allowed on TV with middle fingers and beer and swearing and all that. If there wasn't a little more edginess to the NWO, a little more realism to the NWO, don't you agree?
Look, it's indisputable that anybody that would argue what I'm about to say is so entrenched in their alternate reality of what the world really is. But here's my take. Without Nitro, head to head, and without the NWO becoming what they became, because those two things are directly connected. Said it a million times on this show. Better than, less than, different than. I couldn't be better at WWE than what they were doing, so I was different than WWE at what they weren't doing. I was going after males 18 to 49. They were going after teens and preteens. It's irrefutable. Just all you have to do is freaking look. Or as your friend Dave says, study the business. Yeah, study the person you don't want to admit to, dipshit. But anyway, you look at that was the decision. Teens or preteens? No, can't do that. 18 to 49-year-old men? Yep, I'm going to do that. Once that decision was made, that was the catalyst for the NWO, the reality-based storylines, letting Kevin Nash use his real name, having Scott Hall coming down through the crowd. All shit nobody had ever seen before. That was all new, fresh. Hey, everybody talks about disruptors. Nitro was a disruptor. The NWO, starting with Scott Hall, then Kevin Nash, and then the Hogan turn, was the mother of all TV bombs in a positive way. We nuked the traditional format for presenting wrestling on TV. It took WWE until November of 1997. Go back and look for it if you don't want to just take my word for this. When Vince McMahon came out and basically told the audience, we're changing this shit. But he didn't say, subtext, is we're getting our asses kicked and we might not be around for another 6 months if we don't. That's a fact. I don't know if 6 months is a fact, but the financial position of WWE as a direct result of the head-to-head competition, and more importantly than that, the absolute mega shift by advertisers and interest from advertisers in that 18 to 49-year-old demo, our decision, it was a premeditated, calculated decision, not only to go after 18 to 49, but creatively how to do that within the context of professional wrestling. Those two decisions, head-to-head, NWO, 18 to 49, that changed the entire wrestling business today. And I'll go so. Now that's everything that I just said is, in my mind, you can't argue it. Now, here's a kind of, subjective opinion. I think had it not been for that period of time, head-to-head competition, me forcing Vince McMahon to go, this isn't working, I can't afford it. I'm going to do what they do, only I'm going to turn the volume up because I have to take their audience. Their recipe for their soup is working so good that I've got to come up with a soup that's just a little bit better in a different way so that I can get some of my soup customers back. That is what was going on. In November of 1997, when Vince McMahon came out and said, we're going to change our game, essentially, from that point on, essentially, is when you really started seeing the focus on that demo from WWE. That decision by Vince to change his formula from what had been working since day one, teens and preteens, to now creatively in every other way going after a completely different demo and having to change his recipe to do it, that's what changed the business forever. Had it not been for that situation, I don't think we'd be seeing WWE, at least not the way we see it today, not on the scale that we see it today. You just have to step back long enough. And again, I'm admitting probably a little bias on this one, but acknowledging that I'm biased forces me to look at it even harder because I know I'm going to have to defend a statement like this at some point, and I look forward to doing it because it's just numbers. It's just calendars and numbers. You could just look at it and see. And I think Hogan turning heel within that NWO storyline absolutely made all the difference in the world.
We're live here with Easy E. If you've got a question for the Hulkster, we've got a quick little comment here from Affected Prime, who's with us live. Thank you for everything you do, Eric. My childhood in the 90s was the best because of the magic you created with WCW. Nothing will ever compare to it. Ask a Bum wants you to know that Natalia could be good with the new Real American Freestyle promotion with Kurt Angle. Dustin B is with us here live. And this is an interesting question, one that I don't know that you've ever maybe even discussed with Vince. We know Vince went all in to make WrestleMania happen. Does Vince even create WrestleMania if Hulk Hogan doesn't make his way to the WWF? If no Mania, where is wrestling today? Now, I don't know that you've had that specific conversation with Vince, but we've all sort of freestyled, hey, if it wasn't going to be Hulk, who would have been the guy? And there's lots of debate and discussions, but I do think in order to make a big push for WrestleMania, they had to have a hood ornament. They had to have a central figure. They had to have a star. And just as a refresher, Hogan's first match with the company when he returns to the WWF airs on January 1st. He wins the belt 23 days later, January 24th, 1984. But by March of 85, which is when the first WrestleMania was, they'd already been on MTV. He had already done Saturday Night Live. They had already had the Sports Illustrated opportunity. But maybe biggest of all, they had a new licensed action figure. The action figure deal was out there. Like the momentum was rolling. And I think it can't be argued or even debated that those early years, especially WrestleMania, those were built around Hulk Hogan. Like these days, Eric, people say, and I hear this in my real life all the time. Oh, are you going to the matches? WWE's coming to town this weekend or something like that. But it's always WWE's coming to town. But back then, Eric, people didn't say that. They said, I'm going to see Hulk Hogan this Thursday. I mean, it was a totally different way that we see wrestling promoted the way it's promoted now. Like now you can just say it's Monday Night Raw and tickets are on sale and man, they're flying off the shelves. Oftentimes WrestleMania would sell out just when they put tickets on sale. They don't know who the card is, who's on it, what's on it, none of that. But early promotion from WWE, Hulk Hogan was on everything, every single thing. I mean, even a guy like the Iron Sheik, he made hundreds of thousands of dollars on his action figure because the Hulk Hogan action figure needed to beat somebody up. He really was the central figure in professional wrestling.
That is funny because it's so true. I don't even remember what day it was. The last 7 days. I woke up this morning and I wasn't sure where I was. I didn't, I wasn't out drinking or anything like that. I mean, I woke up this morning. First of all, I slept in. I woke up at 6 a.m. instead of 4, which is very unusual for me. And when I woke up, I was completely disoriented. I recognized that I was in my house, but I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know what I had to do. Usually when I wake up in the morning, I already have like a mental checklist in my head. Not that I get it all done. Trust me. I start out with one and, we'll see what happens. But I usually am very aware of, okay, I'm up. I got 20 minutes to get my coffee. I got 15 to get in the shower because I've got to do whatever at such and such time. So I woke up and it took me 5 minutes to figure out what I had to do today. Just weird. But early on, I wrote something that said, thank you for the house, Hulkster. Put that on social media. And I ended up having to explain that, but the amount of feedback I got from that, just one little comment, was crazy. I'm sorry, I lost track of the question.
Well, we were talking about the Iron Sheik making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I feel like we're doing last week's show all over again. My point in that is the point that my comment was really the point that you just made, because so many people don't realize how elevated everybody, even people that didn't like Hulk Hogan and didn't want to wrestle Hulk Hogan, ended up making more money because of Hulk Hogan. And then, of course, those that did work with Hulk really felt the benefit. But it was truly Hulk Hogan, the brand, truly was the tide that raised all boats. And a lot of people recognize it, and they would say something like, hey, Hulkster, thanks for the house, which is a recognition of just, knowing that all those tickets that got sold tonight, they weren't coming to see me, brother. They were coming to see you, and I just got to come along for the party and make more money in the process. That's really what that was. But you're right. You're right. He made so well. It's just when I say also Vince McMahon. He and Vince together, that boat, rose so hard and so fast that a lot of people made more money. But one more point I wanted to make. Early on in your question or your setup for it, you talked about, you didn't think about WrestleMania. You thought about Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania wasn't coming to town. Hulk Hogan's coming to town. That's a fact. That's a fact, Jack. And it's also it's ground zero for all of the friction, really.
Yes.
Between Vince and Hulk throughout their entire relationship.
Yes.
Was that they both knew early, now, not today, then. They both knew that, well, they didn't know. They were fighting over who that was going to be. Are the fans going to be more aware of the WWF brand, or are they going to be more aware of the Hulk Hogan brand? Because if they're more aware of the Hulk Hogan brand than they are of the WWF brand, Vince loses leverage. Vince didn't want to lose leverage, and Hulk gained leverage. Hulk wanted to gain leverage because Hulk wanted He wanted equity in WWF. He felt as he deserved it. And Vince obviously disagreed. But they both had an argument. That's the fun part. It's not fun. But that's just the really almost dramatic. It's almost funny how these two argued over that point that you just made back in 1984, 1985.
I can't wait for us to talk about this. It is the thing I've wanted to talk about with you the most on today's episode. I think you could argue that the whole Hulk Hogan, Vince McMahon, who made who thing, that's almost like wrestling's version of chicken and the egg, is it not?
It is. That's what I mean. And if you think about it, think back to all the disagreements and all because those two, I can't speak for the Vince side, but I know, I was sitting next to him, listening. I was on speaker. I was listening on speakerphone to, conversations they were having back and forth, and it all comes back to one thing. It's like a husband and wife that just can't get over the fact that there's no compromise when it comes to lifting the lid on the toilet. Like that. No matter what, we can't get over that. And we'll get along and we'll do business and we'll have fun. But the minute we both have to piss in the same pot, it's World War III. That's what that was. That's funny.
I look forward to us talking more about the Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon relationship. We're getting lots of questions about it too. Jason Jocelyn is with us here live, and he wants to know, what did you think of the Hulk Hogan Vince McMahon match? Eric, you may not recall, but this was a WrestleMania match from like 20 years ago. We saw a surprise return from Roddy Piper in it. Did you ever see that match? What did you think of Hogan and Vince's match?
Did it take place in Seattle?
It did, yes.
Then I remember it. Yeah, I remember it. I was there. Yeah. I remember it. I was entertained by it. I had an idea of what to expect. I didn't talk to Hulk about it. I didn't hear how it was going to be laid out or what the finish was going to be or anything like that. But he was pretty lighthearted about it. He wasn't, concerned about it. So I knew it was probably going to be something that was physically, within his boundaries and things that he'd be able to do safely and look good doing it. So kind of knew what to expect. I was anxious to see, Vince play out his character because he was crazy in a good way. I liked it. And when you mentioned that match, the very first thought that came up, flashed up out of my hard drive, was Vince. There's a camera shot,
yes,
where Vince McMahon is looking up over the ring apron,
yep,
and his eyes go this way and this way. I love that shot because it's a perfect example of how to use TV in professional wrestling. Like that same thing wouldn't have had nearly the same effect and didn't have the same effect to the people in the audience unless they were watching on the monitor. Because then you're right in the face of the character. You can, you read their mind. You kind of say, oh, I know what that dirty bastard's going to do next. That's engaging you. That's sucking you in. That's bringing you along, right? And that one camera shot is probably the best example of how and why to use cameras in professional wrestling. Otherwise, they're just catching, action, which is still interesting and important, but man, when you can bring out the emotion and get people inside your head just with a camera shot, it's awesome. I've always liked that shot. Can you tell? I've thought about it a lot.
It's the first thing I thought of too. I think most fans who saw it live, it's a moment they won't remember. Something else you won't remember, or you won't be able to forget, rather, is once you try a Tushy. We'll be right back. All right, guys, let's talk about your butt. I love talking about Tushy. This is my absolute favorite product I get to talk about because I've been a Tushy user for like a decade. And if you've ever been emotionally scarred from riding on public transit and seeing a literal butt sweat print left on the seat, you know what I'm talking about. It's just gross. It's swampy. And you need to get your ass a Tushy bidet. I'm telling you, this is a game changer. you're going to start to talk about your life before and after Tushy. I love this product. And by the way, Eric Bischoff's been to my house and he can attest to this. Every single toilet has a Tushy. I absolutely love it. You will too. It is the everyday luxury bidet. It's going to change your bathroom habits and it's going to feel like luxury, but it's so affordable. Seriously, there's a bidet for every biohacking personality type. Cloud Plus will automatically deodorize the air when you sit down. Your wife will thank you for that. And Aura, my wife loves this, automatically opens the seat when you enter the bathroom. Tushy's elevated bidet collection even nurtures your bottom with instant warm water that never runs cold. It's got a soothing heated seat and UV sterilization for next level hygiene. This is the real deal. All of Tushy's bidets, by the way, easily attach to your existing toilet, so there's no need for additional plumbing. I know what you're thinking. This is way easier than that. By the way, instead of endlessly wiping with toilet paper, Tushy pristinely removes 99% of the bacteria while also protecting your natural skin barrier because there's only one ingredient, fresh water, cuz. And it's so easy to install. We're talking like 10 minutes and you're good to go. Tushy gives you 2-in-1 benefits, but it's just so much cleaner and it's easier. Check this out. You just sit down, handle your business, cleanse, and you can dry it off using the built-in dryer. That's right. You can actually clean yourself now and make bathroom visits hand-free. Did I mention that people who switch to Tushy save up to 80% less on their TP? Yeah, no more clogged toilets. No more damaging wet wipes. Go right now to HelloTushy.com. Use our promo code 83weeks. That's where you'll find that every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. Keep your swampiest body parts fresh and cool. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off of their first bidet order when you use the code 83weeks at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at HelloTushy.com with the promo code 83weeks.
I love that spot. I love that. I love that graphic. I just can't help it. I know this sounds like half twisted, but I'm looking at that picture of that young lady sitting on the toilet in her skirt, by the way, which is kind of, okay, I get it. You know, clearly we want to see the real thing, but she has this look of, I don't know, like she discovered the meaning to life on her face. And I just find that such a great shot to use to sell that product. I mean, if there's anything that's going to motivate you to take a closer look, it's some young lady who's experiencing an amazing degree of excitement sitting on a toilet.
All righty. Try Tushy, boys and girls. Hey, we're talking about the interesting relationship with Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon. We are live taking your questions, and we've still got a bunch of questions from this past Saturday. But Eric, I'd be remiss if I didn't follow up on something you said earlier. Hulk felt like he deserved and was owed equity in the WWF. I don't know if you realize what you said there, but we've never actually officially heard that. Do you remember having conversations with Hulk about him not being an equity partner in the WWF and his disappointment about Vince's, I guess, denial of that offer?
Many times. I'm surprised that hasn't been discussed more. I mean, I didn't get the impression it was a secret from anybody. I heard that. You know, it's not like he didn't dwell on it, but it certainly came up in I don't even know how many conversations. I mean, it stands to reason. It's the wrestling business. Hulk was its biggest star. We saw what was happening. Hulk was everywhere. You know, if there would have been no Hulk Hogan and Vince would have been out there promoting WWF in the same thing that he had been promoting, in the same way he had been promoting it, it would have been exactly the way it was, maybe a little bigger, a little better. But the fact that, you know, Vince shifted gears and all of the promotional weight ended up on Hulk Hogan's shoulders, you would have to be kind of simple to not, if you're the talent, if you're the wrestler, if you're the brand that people are paying for, it would be human nature to go, hey, dude, you know, we're doing this together. Maybe not 50-50, but, you know, what do you think? We're kind of in it together. Makes sense. That was the basis of it, I think. And it just, you know, Vince wasn't going to let it happen. We never got to know why or, you know, what Hulk thought prevented that, Vince from wanting to do that. We never discussed that, but it was kind of a pretty matter of fact comment that I've heard many, many times in conversation.
I know you weren't there, so you would just be trying to guess based on what Mr. Balea told you. But what time frame do you think that was?
I got again, this is not historical data that I'm presenting facts, so it's just check yourself. Guessing whatever period of time when Hulk moved up to Connecticut, because that was kind of like, oh, it's part. It was one more thing that led him to believe that was possible, that Vince would be open to it. I think, I don't know, I wasn't there, but it seems like when I heard this story, it was within the context of Hulk actually physically moving to Florida, which if you knew Hulk Hogan, that's a big commitment. Leaving Florida, he loved Florida. He loved the beach. He didn't like Connecticut at all for all of the same reasons he loved the beach in Florida. So, but he did it because my understanding is he was hoping for or believing that there was an opportunity for him to end up having some equity in WWF.
Man, you want to talk about a major what if? If Vince grants him equity in the company, he would have probably had clauses in there that, it just wouldn't have made any sense, especially if he had equity, to go to a competitor like WCW. Like, if Vince had given him equity, WCW and Nitro, and it could all look a lot differently, right?
Yeah, and that's a whole different rabbit hole, right? In so many different ways. And again, I want to make it really clear here because I've seen, especially over the last week, what happens when I tell a story like that, which is fairly, it's not a complex story, but it's a story in context. People will take little pieces of a story and then regurgitate it in their whatever on their platform to make it sound like I said something completely different. So, and there's nothing I'm going to do to change that because people are low life, low hanging fruit, bottom feeding pieces of shit, and they're going to do what they're going to do. But at least for my audience that will listen to the whole show, I'm telling you something that I remember talking about, hearing about over the past 25, 30 years. Doesn't mean it's a hard, cold, provable fact in a court of law. Doesn't mean that it's complete nonsense and never happened. It's somewhere in the middle of all that, right? It's Hulk sharing with me his disappointment whenever we talk about his relationship with Vince McMahon. And again, I want to make that very clear. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't resentful. It was almost respectful because Hulk did respect that Vince was protecting his family and his brand. He didn't like it, but he kind of later in life, especially, he's a tough son of a bitch. Good luck negotiating with him. That was the context in which these conversations come up. So let's please not blow it up any bigger than that.
Dustin B is with us here live, and he says it's like Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan, Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Those are the sports equivalents, he thinks, of Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan. I'll be honest, I never really put much thought into that until several years ago. I saw an interview with Stephanie McMahon, and she sort of alluded to the fact that while everyone was celebrating Hulk Hogan, she wanted to be in defense of her dad and say, well, hey, it was my dad who did some of that too. So I do think some of that comes down to ego. And with all due respect, I think some of that existed between Dusty Rhodes as the booker and Ric Flair as the top star of Jim Crockett Promotions. I think that same thing, that dynamic exists. I hate for me to say it this way, but that just feels like ego more than anything else. Is
of
it not? Of
course, it's ego. Yeah. Well, it's ego, and in Vince's case, it was business. Vince had a very he was a control. He was not giving up. He was not going to cede control to anybody. We saw that right up until recently. The way he's handled his business, he just does. He fights, and he wants control. I don't think Vince does play well with others. You know, yeah, leave it alone.
Well, let's talk about the whole equity piece, because you mentioned that Hulk felt like he should have had equity in the WWE, and I could see why and again, I don't mean for this to sound the way it probably comes off, but from a greed standpoint, I could see why you wouldn't want to give up shares and percentages. I get it. But I also see the strategic partnership value of making sure, hey, he's never going to go anywhere. Now, in fairness, WCW was not turning a profit. All the territories were dead. Vince probably never imagined this guy who, as Hulk used to say, used to sell meat out of the back of a truck, was going to kick his ass for Ted Turner. Nobody saw that coming. So I get that. But I do want to ask, when you're luring Hogan over to WCW and you're trying to recruit him and get him back in the game, because I think he probably felt like wrestling was in his rearview mirror. I'm just going to do Hollywood stuff now. Did the equity conversation come up with regards to WCW at any point?
No, but I think Hulk already controlled his brand, right? So it wasn't, the brand came with him, all the marks, the IP, and everything, came with him. Or he had to work through some of that with Marvel when he actually first got to WCW. Before he signed on the dotted line, he had to close up some open-ended copyright trademark issues with regard to using Hulk Hogan, because Marvel also had a claim. So they negotiated it. Hulk got the rights to use it the way we see it today. WWE is using it based on the rights that Hulk negotiated, Henry Holmes negotiated with Marvel, so that when Hulk Hogan landed in WCW, he brought complete trademark with him, all the marks and the IP with him. So I don't, and we were a publicly held company, so it's not quite the same thing, but no, it never came up. And I think Hulk by that time was looking at WCW as like a really high-paying part-time gig that allowed him to continue doing more movies and TV commercials. He was doing a syndicated television series with the producers of Baywatch when I met him. And there was a lot of money in that. So that's where Hulk's head was at in terms of where he was going to spend the majority of his time and money. And wrestling was just like a good support system, not only financially, obviously $2 million a year for 4 pay-per-views. It's a nice part-time gig if he can get it, right? But it also gave him a platform, that being Turner Broadcasting, with TNT, TBS, New Line Cinema, all that. So it was more of a, hey, I'm just going to go join the team and see how it benefits me, as opposed to I'm going to build this company.
There's been a lot discussed about Hulk Hogan's WCW contract that went public again, the 1998 contract. I do want to spend some time talking about that. And I also want to talk about what the Hulk Hogan value meant when he joined the company. You've talked about that a little bit before, but I feel like Guy Evans really nailed it in his new book. I want to talk about that here in a couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the perfect gene. All right, guys, if you know one thing about Eric Bischoff, you know that Eazy-E loves his jeans. Man, he used to wear them all the time and tuck his T-shirts, but we're not talking about that anymore. Those were the good old days, but man, those jeans, they're not as comfortable as you remember them. That is until you try on the perfect jean. I absolutely love these. These are going to be like your new karate action pants. I mean, you're going to be throwing kicks like Rob Van Dam in these things. Serious business. Summer's flying by. Pants season is almost here, and I want you to be ready, because unlike last year, when the first cool morning slapped me in the face awake and reminded me it's pants season, I don't want my jeans to be stiff as cardboard. I don't want to be stuck in something that doesn't stretch or move with me. I don't need to look and feel like it's 2003. I needed new jeans. Well, let me tell you, the perfect jean hooked me up, and I'm started shopping early this year too to make sure I get the best stuff. I repeatedly whispered into my phone, I need new jeans. And the Instagram gods threw me a ridiculous ad of some jack dude running the NYC marathon in the perfect jean. Yeah, it was pretty funny, but it caught my eye. So I clicked on it, learned more, and bought them. They ship fast. We tried them out. And listen, you're going to say out loud, holy shit, these are the best jeans to grace my legs. This brand, the perfect jean, truly is perfect. It's real denim, but it's not that heavy, stiff, suffocating fabric that you're used to. We're talking lighter, softer, stretchier, but still durable, just flat ass better. How about that? And now listen, I'm hard to shop for. I'm a big boy. I'm what you might call between sizes, but not with the Perfect Jean. They got waist sizes from 26 to 52, and they got lengths from 26 to 38. They've also got all the different combinations of fits. We're talking from skinny to thick, thick. You're easily able to find the jeans that fit your body. Hell, even Dave Silva can do it. They're seriously stylish too. You're going to look great cheering on your kid at the ball game or while you're recording an old school wrestling podcast. Serious business. You could even wear these to a red carpet event. That's how good they look. Did I mention the Perfect Jeans actually been worn to the Academy Awards? That's true. For a limited time right now, our listeners can get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc, or just Google the Perfect Jean and be sure to use our promo code 83weeks. You'll get 15% off. I also want to mention, if you have high school or college age kids, you should add the Perfect Jean back to their back to school list. Their entire collection is durable enough to survive teenage chaos, but stylish enough to impress their future in-laws, and so comfortable you won't have to bribe them to ditch those basketball shorts and graphic tees. The Perfect Jean always has free shipping, exchanges, and returns, and you can actually have peace of mind knowing that your order is completely risk-free. It's finally time to stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc. And again, our listeners get 15% off your first order, plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges. Just use that code 83weeks15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with the promo code 83weeks15. Now, once you purchase, they're going to ask you how you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Fuck your khakis and get the Perfect Jean. Eric, let's talk just a little bit about Hulk Hogan's 1998 contract. It's a pretty big opportunity to re-sign the biggest, most successful wrestler in all the land. But you right smack dab in the middle of this incredible NWO run. I think the new contract is going to be agreed upon on May 29th, 1998. So we're 6 weeks away from him making Bill Goldberg at the Georgia Dome. But this has been discussed for years and years. I guess this contract first went public through the discovery process of the discrimination lawsuit that WCW faced in 2000, I believe. Either way, this contract is one I wanted to talk to you about because people point to it and they point to, you know, some of the structures and the percentages and the fee just to wear the NWO merch and the signing bonus. And they wondered, man, how can one guy be worth all this, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's lost in the sauce there is that WCW had never turned a profit until Hulk Hogan came in. They had their most successful pay-per-view of all time in his very first pay-per-view event. This NWO thing that created this wave that made WCW number one, it was by and large because of Hulk Hogan. When you're offering him a contract like this, do you think that's, I mean, I'm not going to say it's you offering equity, but it's maybe as close as you could get to keep him sticky to the WCW brand?
I was certainly, that wasn't a thought process. That wasn't the beginning of a formula for anything. No, I mean, look, first of all, Henry Holmes pretty much structured this deal. Right? You're dealing with, in our world at the time, the largest star, not debatable, no matter how much you study or what you are into. The guy is, in every measurable way, the biggest star in the business, particularly when you start measuring business touch points in the business side of it. Track record, earnings history, growth. There were no categories that you could look at from a financial and business perspective, which is the basis for negotiating an agreement or a talent deal, right? You've got to have some starting point. You've got to have some, okay, what you want X, tell me the reason you deserve X. Tell me my why. Why do you believe that you are worth to this company what you're proposing? And that's the starting point. And Hulk Hogan came in 1994 The agreement was $500,000 per pay-per-view with a maximum of 4 pay-per-views. So that's $2 million a year. That was the financial risk that we ended up with, right? And that's the deal we made. Now, how do we get to that $2 million? What was the math? Was it a gut feel, or was it a bit of pair? Did we have to go for, equity and parity, and everybody all has to make the same amount of money? Doesn't really matter if you've never drawn a dime, but if this guy's making this, well, it's only fair that you're making this. Well, it's not. In any form of entertainment, you are paid for what the market is willing to bear for your services, just like everybody else. Hulk came with a track record, and in any one of the measurable data points in a business conversation, you could look at and point to and go, okay, this is what he's done. We believe we can do this for you. And is it worth it to you? If it is, great. If it's not, we're out. That's essentially the negotiation. And we work hard on the Turner side. And I wasn't a part of negotiating the deal necessarily. I was given the position once it was arrived to, but Hulk's deal was structured outside of WCW's legal team. It was a Turner Entertainment legal team. So I didn't even have any visibility into the day-to-day discussions or developments. Anyway, that's how you arrive to it. You look at it as relevant of information as you can find. And it's hardly ever apples to apples. There's always variables, but you start with what you know. What do we know? Well, the only thing you know is what was done previously, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So let's take a look at the last 5 years. What are we working with? That's how you start the negotiation.
I love hearing about how these old deals came together. And I think one of the things that I wanted to point out is, while people may be critical or not understand or take issue or whatever with that contract that Hulkster got in WCW, Beyond Nitro, the fabulous Guy Evans book that we have mentioned a lot here on the show, you may not know this, but the original book, Nitro, has a sequel. It came out this year. The follow-up book, Beyond Nitro, it's fantastic. And here's an excerpt about the Hogan TNA Spike TV piece of business. Paul Benson, who was formerly the conduit from 2008 to 2015 for an agency that headed up TNA's international programming sales, discussed the impact of Hulk Hogan's acquisition in late 2009. Here's what he said. Previously, TNA had really strong on-screen product. You had guys like Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, and Kurt Angle. Creatively, they were arguably at their peak pre-Hogan. But when I went to meetings representing TNA, I was essentially there with my laptop bag, my presentation folder, and an iPad with TNA demos on it. I was meeting these broadcasters who weren't familiar with wrestling in some cases, and certainly weren't familiar with TNA. I'm showing them these action shots of Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, and that was all well and good, but it wasn't really pushing any of their buttons. After 2010, however, all of our marketing materials became focused on Hulk Hogan. The guys who I was meeting, it was guys in the vast majority of cases, every single one of them knew who Hulk Hogan was. If nothing else, it was a massive conversation starter. It broke the ice. It got the discussion moving. They could relate straight away because they knew I was pitching Hulk Hogan to them. It was a mark of quality, essentially. If they knew who he was, their audience would likely know who he was, and therefore it was less of a risk from a financial standpoint. In recalling the circumstances, Benson describes the intangible consideration for which Hogan could benefit. Quote, imagine you're in the shoes of a broadcaster, he outlines, and I say, so can we do dinner next week? I'm going to bring Hulk Hogan with me. And that was night and day compared to some other TNA talent. Hulk knew how to play the game, and he played it expertly. He was always the most charming man in the room. He knew what his role was, which was to make people feel like he was their friend. He was an expert at doing that. You know, he could have been the best salesman in the world if he wasn't a professional wrestler. He always made the executives feel like he wanted to be there. He talked passionately about TNA. He showed an interest in what executives were doing on a business level. He could hold his own in that conversation relative to what a wrestling property meant to a TV station. Shout out to Guy Evans, and I appreciate the words from Benson, because I think they really lay out something that you've said on this program for years, that when you brought Hulk Hogan into WCW, all of the ad executives who were trying to land accounts on Madison Avenue, like Eminem Mars and everyone in between, they now had an ace up their sleeve. When they mentioned Hulk Hogan, everyone's ears perk up, right? It's a whole new ball game just because of his brand awareness in the marketplace.
It's brand awareness, and depending on the level, I don't know the individual that wrote that story. I find it interesting when he says if Hulk Hogan wouldn't have gone into professional wrestling, he could have been a great salesman.
He was a salesman.
Professional wrestlers are the greatest salespeople in the world.
Yes.
Wake your ass up, young man. But the rest of it I kind of appreciated. But yeah, it's true. And going to the previous question that I spent way too much time explaining, those are the variables that really smart people, whether it's your attorneys, your representation, or whether it's you as a talent, have a deep enough real knowledge of licensing and trademark issues and copyright, even unknowing the difference between the two. If you're really, really smart and have a lot of experience, you still need a great attorney, because situations like we just heard from this person that worked with TNA in an international sales, that has a value. It doesn't have a ticket price necessarily. You can't measure that value very easily, especially in the short term. But if you're an agent representing your client, I know that nuanced value is there, and I have to capitalize on it. So you got to assign a value to it, and you can argue over that. But it's those little things that Hulk Hogan brought to the table, whether it be in this case a television distribution meeting with programming executives. Well, of course, a programming executive has a job, and that job is to sell more programming. And oh, by the way, if I've got somebody that everybody knows that's attached, and he's going to be on that programming, I can take a risk. I'll bet on that, because otherwise I'm betting on the unknown. And if I want to keep my job, I'm not betting on the unknown. I'm going to bet on what I do know. And even if it's just one guy, the track record of success, real or perceived, is such that I'll take the risk. How do you put a price tag on that? So
you can't.
You can't, but it's there and it's real. And Hulk Hogan and this individual who wrote that just kind of laid it all out there.
Shout out to Guy Evans. Be sure to check out his new book, Beyond Nitro. Eric and I think a lot of Guy and think it's one of the best books around when it comes to setting the record straight on all things WCW. Hope you'll check it out. Beyond Nitro on Amazon or anywhere you pick up books. Philip Rams was with us on our live stream last Saturday. We didn't have a chance to get to his question. We've got a little bit of catch up to do, so I'll rapid fire some of these to you, Eric. Philip wanted to know, do you still get goosebumps seeing the response to Hulk Hogan's heel turn at Bash at the Beach 96?
It hits to be different. It's a little more, it's deeper than that. The moment is cool. I get it, but and this has been going on for a while. The older you get, you look back in the context of everything kind of, while it remains the same in that moment, the context in your life, you're probably I am a different person. I look at things a little differently. I appreciate things that sometimes I didn't appreciate, previously. So every time I look at something like that, it's almost like looking at it, not for the first time, but from a different angle. But it's a big moment, and it's only going to, here's the thing, it's only going to get bigger as time goes on. That's the amazing thing that's just actually dawned on me in this moment doing this show is I got to be a part, however small, on camera, right? I got to be a part of certain moments that are pretty big moments that'll probably become even bigger over time. And I think that's a blessing in and of itself. That's pretty cool.
It's super cool, and don't shortchange yourself. You were a huge part of all that.
Oh, I know, no, but that's not why they're going to be bigger, right? I'm Jimmy Harting myself into that opportunity, brother. I was in the right place at the right time doing the work, but I got to be there, and it'll always be around, which is kind of cool.
James Leach says, What about in the future having a Hulk Hogan memorial tournament? I don't know about a memorial tournament, but I do think it's interesting. We saw the WWE celebrate Andre the Giant at WrestleMania with the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal or whatever, and they had the big trophy. If the WWE was going to have some sort of event or match or segment to sort of celebrate Hulk Hogan, what do you think that should be? Like if Andre got the battle royal, what would be a Hulk idea for the WWE to do moving forward to celebrate him? With like a trophy or a medal or a belt or whatever it may be, there's got to be an idea, right?
I'm just going to have some fun with this, right? This is going to be half crazy because there's so many good ideas out there. I'm sure that this isn't one of them, but it's still fun. So here's what I would pitch to Hulk if I could. Okay, Hulkster, what are you known for? Certainly not your wrestling. You weren't the great technician, but nobody knew how to build a character and connect to the audience the way that you did. And some of them may get close, but nobody's going to leave you behind. That's who you are, Hulk. You're that guy that really knew how to build a character. More importantly, a character that connected to what the audience wanted. And I think Hulk would agree with that. He might even smile. And at that point in this pitch, I'd know I had him. Just so you know. And then what I would pitch him is, why don't we have a series, competition elimination series on Netflix? This, little cable middle of the night bullshit. That's for you, Larry. But a real series. This competition elimination comes down to a format where we're taking developmental talent coming through NXT, and they're competing not only to showcase their wrestling abilities, but with a big emphasis on creating their own characters and developing those characters. And Hulk gets to judge. And so what I'm saying is, I would pitch him something that he felt really comfortable with, that he could be a part of and engaged in, because he liked to create. Hulk was far more creative and like all creative people, you create some really amazing shit and you create some embarrassingly bad shit. Nobody that's ever been in the business, the actual business of creating entertainment, has ever not come up with some really, really bad ideas. Some of them public, some of them not. But Hulk loved that process. The reason that he got excited about Real American Freestyle, when he called me and hot tagged me into this thing, what sold me was, he said, brother, these amateur wrestlers, I've been on the road with them for last 6 weeks. Long story behind all that. He said, I'm getting to know these guys. These guys got that Conor McGregor swag. We can build something with these guys. These guys have it. And that's what that's what made me get on a plane. But here's the point that I'm making, is that Hulk's passion was seeing or looking for or hoping to see big characters emerge, because that was Hulk's point of reference. That was his entire professional career, was him, obviously, at the top when it was the right character at the right time that connects with the audience. That's a lot harder to create than one might think, because a lot of things have to be right. But that was his passion. And I think that's why an idea, something like that focused on teaching professionals, some of them veterans that could use a little fine tuning, or the younger talent, teaching them how to create or how to attempt to create in the process of creating characters that really connect to the audience. Because if you can accomplish that, you could be the next Hulk Hogan. You could be the next Rock. You can be the next John Cena. But you got to figure out how to get there. It's not always the booker doing it for you, or the writer doing it for you, the head of creative doing it for you. You know, sometimes you just got to think through it and begin to feel it first, and then help it develop with the people around you. That's the kind of process that Hulk like.
It'd be interesting to see what, if anything, WWE comes up with. Travis Medway had a question for us this past Saturday. That's interesting because we heard it all the time for Andre, but never for Hulkster. Eric, do you have any legendary food or drink stories about Hulk? Could he pack away both? Any memories that make you laugh? I saw on YouTube someone had a clip of him in the old Willowdale house there in Bel Air Beach, the old Hogan Knows Best family estate, where he I think he said in there he ate 24 eggs a day. Do you have it? We've heard like, oh, Andre drank 106 beers or whatever. Do you have any fun Hogan consumption stories you can share with us?
None that, I mean, most of the time where we ate together, either out on the road or whatever, traveling, or when our families were together down in Florida, it was always sushi. I don't know that we've ever gotten together as a family or probably individually and ever not just eaten sushi. And my only comments about, that is I'm glad he was buying, because the man could empty inventory. He could eat a lot of sushi. I can eat a lot of sushi. I couldn't even get close to what that man could consume. So I was just grateful that he reached for the check.
Before Real American Beer, what was Hulkster's go-to beer brand?
He was a Miller Lite guy. He would look at me because I was a Coors Light guy. And he just, what do you drink? It's nasty, man. Get a Miller Lite. Or if there was only, there were no more Miller Lights available and only Coors Lights, like when we're on the plane, God forbid, I handed him a Coors Light. Brother.
Is it true back in the Nitro days that he'd have a cooler full of beer for after the matches for the boys?
I didn't know that was a secret either, but yeah, that was, I'm not, look, people say, is there anything you'd do over again differently? Sometimes it's little shit like letting, beer backstage while everybody's working, pretending to beat the hell out of each other. So, what could go wrong, right? Sure, bring a couple cases of beer in here. Not proud of it, but look, it wasn't obsessive or excessive, but yeah. And that's why Hogan had a lot of friends. You go in his dressing room, and yeah, we probably had, staff put, 10 or 12 on ice. And then somebody that Hulk knew really well would, come along 2 or 3 hours later with a case or two. So yeah, generally speaking, it never caused a problem. In fact, I can't remember one time that, oh man, wouldn't have had that beer in the backstage. That wouldn't happen. There were people that got into incidents, but they were never part of the, the handful of guys that would come in and drink Hulk's beer. But yeah, we did that.
Pooski had a question for us this past Saturday. He said, Eric, any goofy, big, sexy, and Hulk stories? I always saw those two as big goofs behind the camera. Hulkamaniac since '89. Hulkamania lives forever. Yeah, let's talk about that. Do you have any fun Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan stories? I mean, I can only imagine when those guys traveled, they walk in a store or restaurant. I mean, those are the biggest two guys that could possibly walk into that establishment that day. But from what I understand, they're both pretty laid back, chill guys. Maybe they like a beer or two and maybe some left-handed cigarettes every now and again. Any fun, goofy, big, sexy Hulk Hogan stories you can share with us?
No, because I didn't really hang out with either one of them after the shows. Hulk, I always, went wherever the team was. I like to come down after the shows and, shows were all pretty good back in the day. So we were always leaving the arena, kind of jacked up and excited. And it was fun to go to the bar and have a couple beers with the team and watch the replay, because then we got to see on TV what we just got done doing, which was kind of a cool thing. And Hulk would never really be a part of that. He might come down for a little while, but being in a large group, especially in a bar where the public also has access, if Hulk Hogan's there, it turns into chaos, right? It's not fun for anybody around him or him, but especially for the people around him, and he knows that. So he'd hang around for a little bit, but he would disappear. Kevin Nash is very similar. Kevin would occasionally hang out. We would hang out together occasionally, but for the most part, you didn't see them as part of the traveling circus after the show, so to speak.
Sean H. had a question this past week. He says, Eric, you came into the WWE after WrestleMania 18, so I wanted to know your thoughts on the match. Is there anything you would have changed? Do you think the double turn was the right call? Of course, the match he's referencing here, Eric, is perhaps Cody Rhodes' favorite match. Hulk Hogan and The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Of course, as you may recall, on the way to that match, The Rock had challenged Hulk Hogan, and then Hulk Hogan responded by hitting him with an 18-wheeler. So clearly, Hulk Hogan is the bad guy, but not that night. The fans were booing The Rock. They wanted everything that they could get from Hulkamania one last time. The next night on Monday Night Raw, they couldn't even let him speak. I mean, it was like a 6-minute standing ovation. And every time he brought the microphone closer to his mouth, the pop got louder and louder. Vince sees this, and as the story goes, says, you got to fly home and get your red and yellow shit. So we're going to pivot immediately. The WWE audience didn't want the black and white Hogan. They wanted the red and yellow Hogan. So, of course, Rock takes that as an opportunity to lean into the Hollywood Rock version, where he's going to come out and do funny songs and mock the hometown crowd. But I don't know that it's called a double turn, but that was certainly the result. You're not there for that piece. Do you think if there was an Eric Bischoff component to the NWO, it changes anything? Do you think they made the right call by going back to the red and yellow? What'd you make of all that?
I don't remember watching it. I don't think I did. I've had a lot of conversations about it. When I say a lot, we've plenty of conversations with references to it, and many conversations with Hulk. So I have a take on it. Let me go to the first part of the question. Do I think having an NWO involvement in that would have changed anything? No. Here's probably the answer to every other question you could get asked about that. I'm guessing Hulk knew that coming into, where was it, Toronto?
Yes, Scotto.
Hulk knew, you can make me heel all you want. You could just have me biting the heads off pigeons like Ozzy. You can do whatever you want. When I come to Toronto, they're going to cheer. Oh, brother, we can get it done. I'm guessing. I don't know that. And probably I'm taking this position based on just different things that I've heard. But Hulk sounds to me like he just went along knowing that it probably wasn't going to work, because it became obvious that no matter what they did, they didn't want to boo Hulk in Canada.
Well, something that nobody wants to do is boo SummerSlam. It's this weekend, and it's the biggest SummerSlam ever. You've got a 2-night SummerSlam, and I know a way to make it a little more fun. This weekend is the biggest SummerSlam ever. It's 2 nights, and MyBookie has odds on every match. Jade Cargill's a heavy favorite over Tiffany Stratton for the WWE Women's Championship, and Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul find themselves at plus 300 taking on Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. Meanwhile, the betting odds are completely against Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, who are hooking it up with Roman Reigns and Jey Uso in tag team action. But at MyBookie, man, you're not just betting winners, you're betting entrances, turns, shock wins, and getting paid when you read the story right. Sign up with the code 83weeks, and MyBookie will back you on your first deposit. $100 gets you 50 extra. $200 gets you a Benjamin. What you do with it is up to you. 2 nights, SummerSlam 2025. Bet smart, cash in, only at MyBookie. We're live here talking to Easy E, Eric Bischoff, about the Incredible Hulk Hogan. If you've got a question, we want to hear from you. Keep them coming. David Martinez offers this comment. He says, I met Hogan in NYC when no cameras were around. He was always incredibly kind to me. We will always love him. Do you guys think another future Hogan DVD of him can be made? Any future projects about him? Eric, I don't know that they're going to be cranking out a bunch of new Hulk Hogan DVDs, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't a rush on Hulk Hogan content, whether it's documentaries or specials or compilations, or even that Hulk Hogan movie that I know they tried a few years ago. Like, it feels like there's going to be a renewed interest in Hulk Hogan right now that maybe people didn't foresee. And so, the media companies, I suspect they'll try to feed the beast the appetite for fans who want more Hulk Hogan content. Do you expect that's coming?
Yes, yes. And I am, I know Netflix is, well, they were pretty close to closing out production on the Hulk Hogan project that Netflix is doing with WWE. So I don't know what the status is on that. I'm not directly involved in it. I just know that they're still shooting things for it. So they have been for a while. As far as other, media of opportunities, yes, there'll be an avalanche of them at some point. We'll tell what happens with it. Obviously Hulk's relationship with WWE is what it is, and it's not going to change. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to the brand in general and the trademark, particularly with WWE and their ability to continue to build upon it, which is what I'm hoping for. What you hope for in a brand is longevity, obviously. And now that, especially, I think because Hulk's passed, just personally, I would be more interested than ever in building that brand and making sure that it's a part of legacy and history and positioned accordingly.
I look forward to seeing what's next because, even this weekend, I think most of us are going to watch SummerSlam, and we're going to assume at some point there's going to be another Hulk Hogan tribute. There's almost no part of WWE that Hulk Hogan wasn't a foundational building block for. Hey, Brian M is with us here live. This is kind of fun. Eric, I'm the guy you fake handshaked on your way to the ring on your WWE debut. Great times. Remembering Hulk, I still take my vitamins and still pissed he lost to the Warrior. I look back with fondness in regards to Hulk and yourself, Easy E. How about that? Somebody who was there on your debut night. That's kind of fun. Thank you for joining us, Brian.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brian. And forgive me for the whole handshake thing, but he's got to get himself over, right? So hope you understand. Yeah, that's a fun thing about Hulk and looking back at some of the stuff. I even said last week in between, meltdowns that just going back and seeing some of the stuff that people are finding and posting on Instagram, on Twitter, social medias in general. There's some really cool stuff out there. A lot of it I'd never seen before that's fun to watch. So it's fun. It's an experience.
Scott Hall, not that one, but a member of 83weeks.com for the past 4 months. We greatly appreciate you. Throw your little too sweet action. Says, Hulk Hogan was my childhood hero. Meeting him at WrestleMania in Florida was a dream come true. He inspired me in so many ways growing up. Thank you for the memories, Hulkster. You will be missed. R.I.P. legend. We're seeing so many people who have such fond memories of Hulk Hogan. I can't help but think about a not so great moment in the Hulkster's career. This past January 6th, the debut of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. They were in Los Angeles. I'm sure, we're 2 months after an election where he clearly made his voting choice known. And my goodness, the response was overwhelmingly negative. In the moment, I felt bad for Hulkster. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, I feel even worse thinking, man, that was the last wrestling reception he got. Just a total opposite of what we were talking about in Toronto way back at WrestleMania 18. Did you ever spend any time with Hulk and talk about that reaction? Was that water off a duck's back? Or I just imagine that has to bother you at some point. And no matter how much he's been around and all that, like, do you think it bothered him?
Yes. And he dealt with it by accepting it and then trying to use it to kind of calculate, okay, if that's the vibe, if that's what the market is thinking, how do I play into that?
Yeah.
How do we use that? Because otherwise it's like, okay, well, let's just throw ourselves off a cliff. So he, I don't want to say, here's what I think, and I'm just sharing something personal that I think he would be okay with. So I'm kind of thinking through it as I say it. So bear with me. Of course, he didn't want that, right? That should, if you look at everything that he's been doing prior to that moment, going out there and getting that positive reaction and all that has been, it's part of the journey. It's why he kept doing it, is because he loved those moments. He loved coming out and getting that Hulk Hogan reaction. It made him feel alive. It made him feel younger. It reminded him of what life was like when he was kind of in better control of it and not in the pain he was in and the situation he was in. He would have those moments, probably much like Ric Flair does and others. That when you finally get that opportunity to step out in front of the crowd and you get that connection again, it's not about ego. People think, oh, it's not your ego. It's just an energy and I can't think of a better word than connection. That's rare to get in any other way. He loved that. So when you say, oh, do you think he was disappointed? Here's what he told me. No, brother, it is what it is. I'm just going to lean into it. And he was positive. I didn't give the positive Hulk Hogan inflection there, but he was very determined / positive. It didn't hurt him, I think, emotionally. I do believe it did in the moment. I do, because I remember watching it with my wife, actually. And I could hear what he was thinking by seeing his eyes and the way his body language, right? There was a moment, I told my wife, I said, there's a moment. I said, honey, he may turn heel. It's live TV. He's reacting to the crowd. He's doing what his instincts have always told him to do, which is to go with the crowd. How many times have we heard that, Hulk? Or excuse me, Conrad, how many times have we heard guys like Hulk or Ric Flair talk about, you've got to learn how to listen to the audience?
Yeah.
Well, he was listening to the audience, and now his wrestling instinct is use it. Turn it around, get control, make it work for you, brother. That's what you do. It's your instinct telling you to do that, but he didn't do it. But there was a couple moments, maybe split seconds, but I could see in his eyes he was ready to reach for it. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. And he went the other way and he wrote it out. I have to believe he didn't tell me that it hurt. In fact, he tried to convince me that it didn't because he was convincing himself. But that's what he did.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to ask you a question from Instagram, a wrestling historian. My man always brings their great questions, and this is no different. Did Hulk Hogan ever tell you how he wanted his WCW career to end if it hadn't been for the Bash at the Beach 2000 debacle? Thanks in advance. So we know that he leaves Bash at the Beach 2000. So do you. And he never comes back to WCW. They're gone and out of business by March of the following year. We're going to see him show up after he walks out of WCW in July of 2000. We next see him on WWE program February of 2002. Did you ever have a conversation about the right way to finish the Hulk Hogan character in WCW? Was there ever, because I know he sort of played hokey pokey with, hey, I'm going to take a break for a bit. I'm going to do this whole, I'm going to run for president gag. So there were always stops and starts for films and other things. Was there ever a serious discussion where he said, hey, Eric, what if I wound it down? What about this idea? And he pitched like a last match, last angle, last story idea. Did that ever happen?
No, I think there's, I mean, Conrad, you've been around enough of these guys to know that they never want to say, I'm done.
Right.
Even if they say, I don't ever want to get back into the ring again, in their mind, they're hoping somebody comes along and convinces them otherwise. Again, it's that that connection that they can't get anywhere else. And no matter what they say, they always would love an opportunity to do it. Now, a lot of guys realize that it's not realistic. Physically, it's just not realistic. Medically, some of them would not even be allowed to get into the ring, according to WWE existing protocol, just because they're not at a level of physical condition where they're a acceptable risk to put in the ring, right? So there's certain people that if you've got certain situations and a bad hip and a replaced knee or whatever, and you're on the do not touch list, which means do not touch. So most guys know that, but some still want that opportunity deep down inside. He never talked about it. He never talked about it. He never, it's almost like, I don't want that we're so far away from that. He not wanting to accept that the end is coming. That's kind of a big statement, but not really looking at your end of career as a timeline as opposed to a lifestyle. With Hulk, it was still the lifestyle.
We mentioned Hulk Hogan's son, Nick, a little earlier in the program. Was there ever discussion about Nick doing more in the wrestling business? I know some dads we see that are professional wrestlers sort of put their foot down and say, absolutely no way, no how. I don't want you in the business. Others sort of lean into it and encourage it. We know that Rick had both Reed and Ashley decided to pursue professional wrestling, and Charlotte Flair has become a mainstay in WWE. But Nick Hogan and Brooke Hogan, I don't know that we ever saw them in a serious wrestling role. Was Hulk adamant that the kids not get into wrestling, or was it not something that interested them, or what can you tell us about that?
Well, Nick actually trained with Rikishi at Rikishi School in Knoxboro in California. I think Nick and my son Garrett were there at the same time. My timeline may be off on that. I'll have to check with Garrett, but I'm pretty sure that they were there training at the same time. And there was a point where Nick was, I don't want to say how serious, but he was serious enough to get on a plane and put in some pretty grueling hours and time in a not so sweet environment when you're, a multimillionaire's kid from the beach. So Nick toughed it out, and he trained with Knoxboro. Now, I don't know how long he was there. I do know he suffered a shoulder injury, which is probably what took him out of the process. But he was committed at that point for sure, because he was there with my son.
Interesting.
And we saw Brooke on TNA. I know you. The question probably meant, or you're meant, she didn't wrestle in the ring,
right,
which is true. But there was a pretty cool storyline. I think Bully would tell you one of his favorites. There's a pretty cool storyline between Hulk and Brooke and Bully as a part of the whole Aces and Eights thing. So go back and check that out. But it may not be your cup of tea generally, but as a story and character development and really getting a look at Brooke's abilities, because she's really, really good. I'm quite surprised that she didn't lean more into acting as opposed to music, because she's got great instincts as an actress and a character. Amazing instincts, actually. And you'll get a good look at them there, because it was the first time she'd ever really done anything like that other than being on VH1, which is not the same thing. She was playing a character for us. She was just being worked there. Check it out, though. She did a great job.
We've mentioned Nick a few times. We haven't spent much time talking about Brooke. I think most of us fans, we've heard that, hey, she was, working as an interior design business. She owned an interior design business in Nashville, helping Airbnb owners. And I'd heard that for years, but I don't know, a few months ago, I actually stumbled across some of her posts on Instagram. I was blown away. And she's really good at that. Like, wow.
Yep. She has her mother's instinct artistically. Linda, Hulk's ex-wife, that was her passion. And Brooke obviously grew up in it and developed her own instinct and flair for it. So I'd heard I haven't talked to Brooke in a couple of years, obviously, and I heard she's doing really, really well, and I'm happy for her. Very happy for her. Wish her the best.
Absolutely. You know, fun little fact. I don't know that me and you've ever talked about this, or you and I have ever talked about this, but I saw when she made a really nice, heartfelt post about her dad on social media the other day. She mentioned that she named one of her daughters. I think she has two girls. I'm not sure, but I know she had twins. Either way, she has a daughter with the middle name Jean, which is, of course, Hulk Hogan's real life middle name, Terry Jean Balea. And what caught my eye about that is Megan Fleer, Ric Flair's eldest daughter. She named her daughter Morgan after Richard Morgan Fleer. I think it's kind of interesting that the two biggest wrestling icons from the 80s both have granddaughters bearing their middle names. I think that's kind of fun.
Can I throw in another one?
Yeah, please do.
My father's name was Kenneth James Bischoff. Garrett's middle name is Garrett James Bischoff.
Oh, wow.
Garrett's son, my grandson, is Waylon
Wow.
James Bischoff. So there you go.
I love it. I love that. That's awesome. I love when, you know, it's like everything's kind of cosmically connected. I don't know if you saw, but Vince McMahon was in a pretty bad car accident last week.
Surprise, surprise.
He had a one of the last V12 Bentley coupes, all blacked out exactly like he was looking for, and it was hard to find. But he got it, and then he ran it into the back of a BMW, doing 80 or 90 miles an hour. But as the story goes, it was within a couple hours of us finding out that Hulk Hogan had left us. You know, I don't believe in that sort of thing necessarily, but you hear those examples and you're like, man, the universe is connected somehow, is it not?
Yeah, this one's been a little too connected for me, to be honest with you. Man. So
Yeah.
I'm walking around in a constant state of, whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, that was unusual. There's been a lot of that going on in my life and in my head lately. But, you know, I don't want to go into it in detail, but as an example, I talked to you about last week when I literally got the news in real time that Hulk Hogan had passed. I did so watching television that used a clip of Hulk and I sitting next to each other just a couple of weeks earlier on that same television show in New York.
Oh, God. Wow.
That was I'm dialing the phone. I'm dialing Nick Hogan because I had heard from Mike Johnson, PW Insider, who I'm very grateful for, by the way, that there might be something going on and I should follow up. So I go up to my room, the TV's on, I dial the phone, I'm calling Nick Hogan. Breaking news, Hulk Hogan dead at 71. And cut to a video of me sitting right next to Hulk just 2 or 3 weeks before on that same show.
My God.
That was so I mean, and I didn't say that for, you know, sympathy, because I'm fine with it now. I'm actually, that fact puts a smile on my face.
Yeah.
And then it does now. For the reason you just pointed out, it's amazing. If you believe, it's amazing what you can see and feel that you might not otherwise see and feel.
We're going to talk a little bit about car gurus. We'll be right back after these words. All right. If you know me in real life, you know I'm obsessed with cars. I am a car guy. I can't help it. I'm on Car Gurus every day looking at cars, and I know where to look. I know where to get the best deals, because making a big purchase should come with confidence, not confusion. And Car Gurus helps you cut through the noise, man, and they show you the best deals and in-depth vehicle details so you can feel confident about your purchase, because when it comes to your big deal, you deserve the very best deal. Earlier this week, we were doing a live on YouTube, and when I was talking about Car Gurus, I had multiple people pop up and verify, hey, man, I just used them. They're great. My wife, Megan's using it right now. She was recently rear-ended at a red light. She's shopping for a new car, and I said, hey, honey, look at this one I found on Car Gurus. Now she's sending me stuff. Car Gurus will connect you with trusted dealerships when you're ready, ensuring a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more car listings than any other major online automotive marketplace in the U.S., so you truly can find the best deal. Car Gurus gives you the control to shop how you want to shop, with the tools, the information, and the data-driven deal ratings that you really need. It's no wonder that SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows that Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. Go to cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com, cargurus.com, cargurus.com. We're live here with Eric Bischoff at 83weeks.com, and I want to give a shout out to Ronnie, who's with us, and he had a great question. Had WCW ended up winning the Monday Night Wars, what do you think the next decade, talking about the year 2000 forward to say 2010, would have looked like for Hogan? Would he have continued wrestling there full time? Now that's interesting. If WCW winds up beating WWE and now they're the big promotion, the sole promotion of wrestling, I mean, Hogan's going to be front and center for that thing for a long time, right?
Yep. And my guess is, because Hulk's, I don't know this is a fact, I doubt that Hulk's contract with Turner was assignable, so it didn't come with the acquisition. So if Brian Badal and Steve Greenberg, and I know how I would have voted, and I know how Brian and Steve would have voted, by the way, because we talked about it, would have had to cut a deal with Hulk, and Hulk probably would have had equity in a new WCW because he didn't come over as he wouldn't have come over as part of the sale.
Billy T had a question this past weekend when we did our first Hulk Hogan tribute episode, and he had an interesting thing that we haven't really talked about before. Hey, Eric, whose idea was it to end the Goldberg streak? I really feel that Hulk Hogan should have been the one to end the streak. Eric, if you'll recall, it was such a big deal that Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan. Most people who are familiar with Hulk Hogan's history in wrestling, they know that he always saw money in the rematch. Now, granted, usually that's when a heel or another babyface, I guess, got a win over a babyface Hulk Hogan. This was the NWO Hollywood Hogan character, but we know that, we first had Renegade in WCW and then later the actual Warrior. We know the whole Piper thing was around, the Savage. So anytime there was a history there, Hogan always saw money in the return. I mean, even famously, hey, Andre's no longer with us, but we can say that Paul White is the son of Andre. Why didn't we get Hulk Hogan, Goldberg, the rematch on pay-per-view? I mean, don't get me wrong. What happened in July was fantastic at the Georgia Dome, but it does feel like it lends itself to a pay-per-view rematch. Why didn't it happen?
Oh, timing. There were a lot of things going on at that particular time. I'm not sure, but perhaps one of them might have been Goldberg demanding or forcing a new contract in the middle of an existing contract. That did happen. Now the question is this time period, when it happened? Because if it is, that would have been a part of the answer. I don't know that for certain. I have to go back and look and match up some timelines. And I think, again, I'm reading into it now. This is not based on any conversations I had at the time, at least not that I remember. But I think it was probably Hulk realizing the timing was right for him and for Bill, knowing that Bill could not continue, to keep doing what he was doing. He had to have something to take him to that next level. Hulk really knew that this was the next level opportunity. And I think Hulk probably did see in his head, okay, down the road, because of this, we can bank on that. But whatever that idea may have been, really wasn't a part of our conversations. I think it was just something that, Hulk had, in his calendar, so to speak. Let's see in a couple of months where this is at. Maybe there's a rematch there. I'm guessing that was it.
Let's do another question here from Sean. He says, "Hey Eric, I was glad to see you at Raw the other night. The Hulkster would have been proud. Hope you're doing well. I've been wondering, who do you feel was his greatest rival as a face and as a heel?" Now that's interesting because you've got a unique performer who had an incredible run as a babyface and then another as a heel. So if you're going to pick, the best babyface opponent feud and then the best heel opponent feud, who would you pick, Eric?
Give me that one more time. I'm sorry.
Who was Hulk's greatest rival as a babyface, and who was Hulk's greatest rival as a heel? So when Hulk was a bad guy, was it Sting? When Hulk was a good guy, was it Randy Savage? What do you think?
No, I'm thinking about it because some of this stuff I wasn't there. The Hulk, and
Sure.
when he was a baby face, it just wasn't. I wasn't watching a lot of wrestling at the time, so I'm kind of scanning my database looking for the one that makes the most sense. And to me, that probably is it was Randy Savage, the Mega Power story. I mean, no, that's not it either. That would be it. I don't know, man. I hate these kind of questions because I have to think too much about it.
Well, let's ask you guys.
As Hulk as a heel, that one's a lot easier for me. Obviously, I think as great as the Hulk Sting story was as a story before the fucked up ending, I get it. Don't need to remind me. As a build and a story, I think that I don't know one that could even compare. That would have to be it.
Derek Payne was with us here live this morning, and he says, was there ever a storyline that Hulk sold Eric on that turned out brilliant that Eric wasn't keen on? Was there an idea that Hogan laid out to you that you didn't love, but you went with it? And man, you were wrong. It was fantastic.
Yes, but not an idea in the sense of, hey, let's draw a picture of a wrestling story or a character, right? It wasn't an idea that you could assign to a moment that we could talk about that we'd all remember. But I was just thinking about this morning, actually, an entirely different subject. It had to do with Real American Freestyle. And one of those moments that I kind of teased a few moments ago where every once in a while this thing happens in my head and I go, well, that's weird. Where did that come from? That's not how I normally think. What the hell? It's like my brain is speaking in tongues, but I understand it. Not really. It's just a joke kind of, but there were so many moments in an overall creative discussion, whether it be let's shape an idea or what if this happened, just casual conversation. He would throw out a perspective. He would always call it his feel, but he would react to something that he was hearing and go, no, brother, try this on. And he'd come over the top with his version of your idea. And a lot of times you would go, oh, he just doesn't really get the core idea. And oftentimes you would go, oh, where did that come from? Because it was atypical of the type of an idea or of a perspective. It was atypical from what we would normally expect. So you expect you see the whole picture with Hulk Hogan when it comes to creative, and for the most part, you're pretty close. But he uniquely had these. Scott Hall had the same thing, and only more of it, to be honest. Had a unique ability to capture the right vision in their head at the exact right time where it really enhanced a story or a moment. Scott had it in abundance when he was sober. He was amazing. I've said that a million times. So has everybody else that's worked with him. When you got his head straight, he was wicked good. Hulk had this same thing, but his came in bursts, and it wasn't always there, but boy, when it was, he'd knock it out of the park.
We're getting a lot of really, really positive comments about the Hulkster, and we're going to be streaming some of those. I do want to ask something that's a little silly, but I feel like we all know how strong of an individual he was. I mean, one of the most jacked wrestlers that we had ever seen when he debuts. Askabum says, I'd always heard that Hulk had insane grip strength. Did you ever see anything that sort of surprised you? Like, oh yeah, I forget that my best buddy here is probably the strongest guy in the zip code. Did you ever see anything like that?
No, I never did. And I worked out with Hulk. There was a period of time, I don't remember the dates anymore, probably, it doesn't matter. It was in the 2000s. I was living in Los Angeles most of the time, down in Santa Monica. Hulk was there a lot for whatever reason. And whenever we were in town or together or we had time, we'd go to Gold's Gym over in Venice Beach and work out. And when I visited his home in Clearwater, he and I and Randy Savage, Brian Knobs would go to the gym and we'd all work out. So I've spent a lot of time working out with him in his gym in Bel Air, as well as the one in the house that he was living in when he passed. So I've worked out enough with Hulk to get a sense of his strength. But here's the thing about Hulk. And all that time, even when he was coaching me, because clearly I was never spent a lot of time throwing weights around the gym, but he would coach me, and I would see the weights that he would work out with. He was a big believer in using lightweight, not throwing as much weight around as you could. And now, granted, he was lifting for a different goal. Not everybody is lifting for the same reasons or want to achieve the same things physiologically. But for Hulk at that time, as big and strong as he was and capable as he was to move a lot of weight, he used surprisingly lightweight and encouraged me to do the same because he valued joints. It's one thing, it's easy to make your lean tissue bigger, stronger, and you can do it fast. And, you can work at that really, really hard, and that's good. But your ligaments and your tendons, your cartilage, it doesn't adapt as fast as the lean tissue does. So that's where you tear yourself up. And Hulk is the one that educated me in a lot of ways on that. And so I never saw him throw big shit around. It was always medium-sized shit.
Brian M. is with us here live, and he says, what was Hulk's thoughts on NWO expansion? Also, how did you, Hulk, Kevin, and Scott brainstorm? We never really spent time talking about that. Did Hulk think the NWO was the more the merrier?
I think Hulk was kind of caught up in the momentum just like I was. I mean, I was building it for a reason, good or bad, right or wrong. There was a reason I was doing it. Hulk was just kind of along for the ride, and it was working. I mean, and this is, the problem is, this is where success can sometimes be your worst friend. It was working so well. There was a period of time where you could get anybody over if you wanted to in an NWO story. It had that much value as a storytelling device and a brand. In fact, it was so easy and worked so well that we did it way too often, whether it was part of an idea or not. Too much, too soon, too fast. The audience got full. You go to your favorite sushi bar. I love sushi. I love when I go into a sushi bar and it's a family-owned, Japanese family-owned, traditional, not this Asian fusion bullshit. There you go, Larry. It's two for the show. I like really traditional Japanese sushi. I like to know when the sushi is flown over every other morning from Tokyo. It's that fresh. It used to come from a place called the Tsukiji Fish Market, no longer there, but it was for hundreds of years where all of the best fish in the world that was caught at night came into the Tsukiji Fish Market, and the fish merchants would come in and they buy it for their restaurants and their homes or whatever. I want my fish that good. But if I go into one of those restaurants and that sushi chef is throwing fish at me and just here, eat more, eat more, eat more. It's good. I love it. It's good. I love this sushi. It's the best sushi in the world. But I'm choking on it. I don't want any more sushi. And it may be weeks before I go by and get sushi again. That's what we did with the NWO. We just gave them too much, too fast. They got their full. They got their fill. But you don't recognize it while it's happening as much as you recognize it in hindsight. While you're in it, it's like, fire me up. Here comes another one. Let's get him over. Let's get her over. He was there.
Something that you're going to recognize the value of while you're in it is Blue Chew. All right, boys and girls, if there's one thing we love talking about on this podcast, it's other guys' dick. Well, how about this? Enter the room dick first, boys. Blue Chew isn't just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crunch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like somebody gave your downstairs a pep talk and a gym membership. Blue Chew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. Jack could climb down his own stalk on one of these beans. Guys, this isn't just about performance. It's about your legacy or your third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little Blue Chew. Discover your options at bluechew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, you can get your first month of Blue Chew free. Just use the promo code 83weeks at checkout and pay the $5 for shipping. That's it. Join Blue Chew's mission to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Head on over to bluechew.com for details and important safety information. And a big thank you to Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast and having me talk about rock hard wiener right in front of my mom. Happy birthday, Mom. Get your ding-dongs hard, boys. Start your engines. Start your boners. Go to bluechew.com and use the promo code 83weeks. Eric, I cut that commercial last night while my mom was we're at the beach for her birthday, and she was literally 8 feet away in the kitchen making a drink. And I thought, well, we're recording a Blue Chew commercial. She's going to hear it and help pay for the beach house. So here we go, Mom. Listen, I saved this for the end because I don't know how much we want to talk about or don't want to talk about, but something came up over the course of this week that I didn't know, and I think most of us watching didn't know. But there were several reports from mainstream media outlets that detailed that Hulk Hogan in his final days was battling leukemia. That took me by surprise. Did you know that, Eric? Or did he keep it that quiet?
Didn't know that. Absolutely did not know that. I reacted probably the same way you did when I read that. I don't know if it's true or not true. I don't know where that information came from. And it could have been something that was discovered in the autopsy, but he never, ever, nor anybody around him ever said anything about leukemia or anything other than the obvious issues that he was having that he talked openly about, with his heart. I mean, it's all public knowledge, unfortunately. I don't think there's a lot of secrets about what he's gone through medically over the last 10 years. But no, I had not heard that one. That was interesting.
We wish we could sit here and talk about Hulk Hogan all day. I don't know that we could ever really encapsulate what he's meant to the professional wrestling business, to his legion of fans across the world. A true icon. This is before we had access to quote unquote celebrity the way we do now. I mean, now we can look on Tom Brady's Instagram and see what his workouts look like and who he's dating and what he ate for breakfast. But, back in the 80s, we didn't really have access to that. And Hulk Hogan was one of those pop culture icons, and his level of celebrity is going to be something that people talk about for a long, long time. Again, I save this for the end, because there's somebody who used to be pretty close to Hulk Hogan's life who has, for whatever reason, over the last 2 months, their entire show has been consumed with talking about Hulk Hogan, and not always in a glowing manner. Do you want to address any of the Bubba the Love Sponge stuff at all here today?
No.
I didn't imagine so.
If I could go through life and never hear his name again, it'd be a good way to end a good run.
Maybe the worst best friend ever, I guess, is the way to frame that one. My goodness. Thoughts and prayers with the Balea family. I hope everybody has a fabulous Friday and celebrates Hulk Hogan in Florida Day as best they can. And Eric, I know you're getting ready to do some travel and to go celebrate with Mrs. B, and then you've got the uncomfortableness that's going to be the celebration of life. I think it is next Tuesday. Something I thought about, Eric, that I don't know why my brain works this way, but that might be the first time that all the McMahons have been in the same place in a long time, right?
If they are, I would assume they will be, but I don't know.
I think that's just another. It is going to be interesting because it's another testament to how much Hulk Hogan has meant to everyone. That everybody, no matter what they've got going on, he was such an important figure to so many, we'll take the gloves off or put our swords down for the day and get everybody together to celebrate Hulkster. You want to have the final word on your friend, the real life Terry Bollea here today, Eric?
No, I feel last week was tough. This week, I'm proud. I'm proud of him. I'm proud of how people around him have responded on every level. I was proud to be on the stage, standing next to his son and his daughter-in-law. That was and Bruce Pritchard and even CM Punk. I got an opportunity to connect with CM Punk, and nothing but respect, like real respect for Punk. But it brought us together. That moment, that tribute brought us together in so many different ways, as wrestling fans, as peoples, as peers, as friends in many respects. So just being really aware and appreciating the chance to just be there and be a part of that energy, super proud and super grateful.
Thanks for the house, Hulkster. Catch you down the road. So long, everybody.